I mean, if you look back at the first 5 races of this 2026 season, Andrea Kimi Antonelli was, well, he was basically operating in a completely different universe.
Yeah, totally different category. It was just a bloodbath.
Exactly, in a bloodbath. He won by a combined margin that made the rest of the grid look like they were competing in Formula 2. It was just it felt like a statistical inevitability, right?
Right, because you build a dominant car, you put a generational talent in the seat,
Yeah.
and you just run the math. It's game over.
Until Barcelona. Barcelona completely shattered that equation. And so today we are tearing into this massive stack of internal telemetry data, intercepted paddock briefings, engineering white papers to really map out this cutthroat engineering war currently erupting between Mercedes and Ferrari.
And it is an absolute war right now.
It is. Our mission for this deep dive is to understand the exact technical mechanisms driving this fight, as we head into the absolute pressure cooker of the Austrian Grand Prix.
Because the momentum swing we saw in Spain, I mean, that was a violent paradigm shift for the entire grid. We are not watching a procession anymore.
No, not at all.
We're watching a high-speed structural collapse in real time. I mean, Antonelli was looking untouchable. And then, bam, a critical mechanical failure turns his Mercedes into a smoking paperweight.
Just a total disaster.
His winning streak died right there on the spot.
And then Lewis Hamilton, who is, now wearing Ferrari red, just steps right into that exact window of vulnerability to snatch the win.
Which is just poetic, really.
It really is. The man who literally built the modern Mercedes dynasty from the ground up is now systematically dismantling it for Maranello. Let's just look at the math right now because the championship is incredibly volatile.
Oh, massively.
Yeah.
Even if the standings look a bit padded.
Right. Antonelli still holds a 41-point lead over Hamilton and a 50-point lead over his own Mercedes teammate, George Russell.
Yeah, but 41 points, I mean, it sounds like a comfortable buffer on paper, right?
Oh.
But under this new set of regulations, it is a desperately fragile margin.
Seriously fragile.
You get 2 bad weekends, maybe 2 terminal failures on track, and that entire lead just vanishes into thin air. The narrative has entirely flipped.
Yeah.
The engineering war happening behind closed doors right now in Brackley and Maranello is it's reaching a critical threshold.
Which brings us straight to the Red Bull Ring in Austria. Because if Mercedes is linking away from Barcelona with these massive reliability terrors, Austria feels like a track custom built to just exploit every single one of those fears.
It's their worst nightmare.
Literally. Let's break down the telemetry and the physics here. Why is this specific circuit such a brutal reality check for these highly strung 2026 cars?
Well, it comes down to the fundamental physics of the environment, right? First, you have to consider the altitude. The circuit sits high up in the Styrian Mountains, so you're looking at around 700 meters above sea level.
Right.
And at that elevation, the air density drops significantly. There's simply less oxygen in any given volume of air.
Which means the internal combustion engine is literally starved for air unless the turbocharger compensates.
Precisely. To pump the exact same amount of oxygen into the combustion chamber just to maintain your power output, the turbocharger has to spin significantly faster than it would at, say, sea level.
And they already spin ridiculously fast.
Oh, we are talking about the compressor wheel operating at terrifying speeds, well over 100,000 RPM.
Wow.
And when a turbine spins that fast, it generates immense friction and just massive sustained heat.
Right, and you combine that thin air with the blistering track temperatures we're expecting this weekend. I mean, potentially pushing 50 degrees Celsius on the asphalt. And you trigger a severe thermal management crisis.
Exactly. Because the radiators are trying to cool the engine using thinner air, while the engine itself is running hotter just to survive.
It's a vicious cycle.
It really is. And that's before we even look at the track layout itself. You have major elevation changes and these severe traction zones.
Yeah, the layout just forces a very specific kind of punishment on the car.
It does. You have heavy braking zones uphill into turn 3 and turn 4, and those are immediately followed by these slow speed exits where the driver is just demanding massive torque.
Just burying the throttle.
Right. And that puts sky-high degradation on the rear tires. If the suspension geometry allows the car to slide even a millimeter more than optimal under acceleration, the surface of the tire overheats instantly.
You're cooking the rears.
Absolutely cooking them. You combine a thermally overloaded power unit with melting rear rubber, and the car simply cannot defend itself.
And I want to inject some context here from the midfield telemetry data we've been reviewing because, Mercedes and Ferrari, they do not have the luxury of just cruising around in clean air managing their temperatures.
Yeah, definitely not this year.
McLaren and Red Bull are running these incredibly aggressive engine maps, applying relentless pressure right on their gearboxes. And if a top team decides to drop back a bit just to cool their engine, well, Alpine is currently dominating the midfield pace, and they will swallow them whole.
There is zero margin for error. Zero. If Mercedes gets on the radio and instructs Antonelli to turn down his engine modes to save the power unit, he loses 0.3 of a second on the straights alone.
It's on the straights.
Just the straights. And at a track like Austria with massive DRS zones, losing 0.3 means you get eaten alive under braking into turn 3. You cannot back off. You either run the car at the limit or you go backwards.
Which totally explains the internal panic we're seeing radiating out of Mercedes right now. I mean, Toto Wolff admitted point blank that Barcelona was a brutal wake-up call.
Oh, he wasn't sugarcoating anything.
Not at all. According to the internal team memos we were analyzing, Mercedes is rushing major updates to the car for Austria. They are desperately trying to reinforce reliability while simultaneously trying to extract more downforce and power to fend off Ferrari.
And see, that is the ultimate engineering paradox in motorsport.
Right.
Generally, if you want to increase reliability, you have to sacrifice performance. You use thicker, heavier components, or you detune the engine mapping so you aren't stressing the materials so much.
Yeah, but if you want maximum performance...
You strip away weight and push the metals right to their melting point. Mercedes is trying to do both at the exact same time within a 7-day turnaround.
It's insane.
Wolff stated publicly, "We have tight margins, we must improve, we cannot throw away points." That is a distress signal from a team principal who knows the physical foundation of his car is cracking.
Let me challenge the narrative here for a second. The idea that Mercedes is just having a string of bad luck.
Okay.
Because if you look at the failure patterns we've pulled from the race logs, right? George Russell's car suffered a terminal breakdown in Canada. Then Antonelli breaks down in Spain.
Two very different circuits.
Completely different tracks. Canada demands heavy braking, intense longitudinal loads, rapid energy recovery from the brake-by-wire system.
Yeah.
Spain is just this high-speed aerodynamic torture chamber focused on lateral loads and long sweeping corners.
Right.
The fact that the W17 broke down in both scenarios tells us the weakness is systemic. It's like they built an absolute rocket ship for 2026, but the bolts are violently rattling loose every time they launch it. Mercedes isn't just fighting Ferrari, they are fighting their own engineering.
That's a perfect analogy. The cooling packaging, the power unit integration, something deep in the structural DNA of the Mercedes car is actively rejecting the performance envelope they're trying to operate in.
Yeah.
When a car fails in two completely different aerodynamic and thermal environments, it means the baseline architecture cannot handle the stress.
Which sets the stage perfectly for Ferrari's counterpunch. Because while Mercedes is frantically trying to reinforce their chassis with duct tape and hope, Ferrari is bringing upgrades explicitly designed to exploit Mercedes' exact vulnerability.
They smell blood in the water.
They really do. The engineering research we have on Ferrari's upgrades points to a massive overhaul happening in Maranello.
Yeah. Ferrari brought significant aerodynamic upgrades to Spain, mainly to optimize underfloor airflow and downforce. But for Austria, the focus shifts entirely to raw, unadulterated power.
Just pure grunt.
Pure grunt. They are targeting the one metric where the Mercedes power unit actually held a distinct advantage at the start of the year, the internal combustion engine.
Let's get into the guts of this, because this is where championships are decided. The technical notes highlight a major update to Ferrari's ADUO system, their Advanced Dynamic Upgrade Optimization program. What physical changes are actually happening inside the Ferrari power unit for this weekend?
We need to look directly at the combustion chamber. Ferrari is introducing a highly sophisticated modification here. It's a brand new cylinder head constructed from a state-of-the-art steel alloy.
Okay, now wait. In modern Formula One, teams traditionally rely heavily on advanced aluminum alloys for these specific engine blocks, right? Because aluminum is incredibly light.
Exactly.
Reducing weight in the upper half of the engine lowers the car's center of gravity, which obviously improves cornering.
But aluminum has a glaring thermal limit.
It warps.
It does. When you push extreme combustion pressures and elevate those internal temperatures to squeeze out more horsepower, the aluminum begins to compromise. Its yield strength just drops.
Yeah.
It can warp, or you start to develop these microscopic fractures in the metal. And once a microfracture forms under those immense pressures, it leads to the exact kind of terminal blowouts we are seeing over the Mercedes camp.
So by swapping to a steel alloy for the cylinder head, Ferrari is fundamentally altering the thermal dynamics of their engine
Yes.
because steel retains its tensile strength at vastly higher temperatures compared to aluminum.
That's exactly how it works. Think of the combustion chamber like a pressure cooker. If you want to cook something faster, you turn up the heat to build more pressure inside. But if the walls of your pressure cooker are made of thin, weak metal, the whole thing explodes. By building the cylinder head out of this specialized steel alloy, Ferrari has essentially built a much stronger pressure cooker. It can withstand significantly higher peak cylinder pressures without deforming.
So how does that mechanical change actually translate when the rubber meets the asphalt in Austria?
It gives Ferrari the ability to aggressively manipulate the ignition timing and the fuel mixture. They can run the engine hotter and push the combustion cycles much harder.
Oh, wow.
Now, connect this back to the physics of the Austrian circuit we talked about earlier. The thin mountain air, the severe heat, the massive demand for torque out of those slow corners.
Right.
The steel alloy gives Ferrari a profound heat management advantage. They can deploy maximum electrical and combustion energy for longer durations than Mercedes without the fear of melting their own components. In this specific high heat environment, this upgrade could literally be the killing blow.
Hang on, let me push back on that logic for a second.
Sure.
If Mercedes is actively breaking down on track because they are pushing their internal components too hard, isn't Ferrari playing with fire here?
How so?
By intentionally cranking up their own internal engine pressures, aren't they risking the exact same terminal failures? It sounds like they're loading a heavier charge into the chamber and just hoping the barrel doesn't explode right behind Hamilton's head.
It's a massive risk, I won't deny that, but this is where the material science comes into play. They aren't just turning a digital dial on the old aluminum engine map. They have physically changed the boundary conditions of the hardware.
Right.
This new steel alloy is engineered in Maranello to handle this elevated threshold. They are raising the physical ceiling of what the engine can endure without sacrificing structural integrity. And before they ever put this part on the actual car, it was validated by thousands of hours on the dyno.
And I should clarify for anyone newer to the engineering side, a dynamometer is basically this high-tech indoor test bed where teams bolt the engine down and run it through simulated race distances. They can replicate the exact altitude, the humidity, the exact throttle traces of the Austrian Grand Prix to see exactly when and how the metal fails.
And Ferrari's dyno testing clearly gave them the absolute confidence to run this steel alloy in a live race. They've built a denser, tougher containment vessel so they can trigger larger, hotter explosions.
But the telemetry and the development notes reveal that this combustion chamber upgrade isn't even the final form of Ferrari's attack. The arms race is accelerating. What is the next phase of this ADUO power unit program?
The next phase, which our internal notes indicate is looming right on the horizon, is a complete renewal of Ferrari's turbocharger architecture.
And the turbo is the beating heart of these hybrid systems. I mean, it dictates exactly how power is delivered to the rear wheels.
Right. And Ferrari already started the 2026 season with a structural advantage regarding the turbo's physical footprint. Their turbocharger is physically smaller in terms of packaging than the unit Mercedes is currently running.
Which is huge because a smaller turbo means you can shrink wrap the carbon fiber engine cover much tighter around the internal components.
Yeah.
And that creates a much cleaner aerodynamic channel for airflow over the rear of the car, which generates more downforce over the rear wing while simultaneously producing less aerodynamic drag on the straights.
It's a compounding advantage. You get it on both ends. And now Ferrari is taking that already compact turbo and completely overhauling the internal geometry.
How so?
Specifically, they are changing the number of curved blades on the compressor wheel and introducing exotic aerospace materials to construct them.
Let's break down why a curved blade even matters here. Straight blades simply push air, right? But they create aerodynamic turbulence, essentially these tiny pockets of drag right at the tips of the blades. How does curving the geometry change the physics inside the turbo?
So curved blades, which are often referred to as swept or 3D machined compressor wheels, they slice through the incoming air much more efficiently. They maintain a completely smooth boundary layer of air across the surface of the metal. Because there is less aerodynamic resistance, the exhaust gases can spin the turbine up to optimal RPM fractions of a second faster.
And in Formula One, a fraction of a second is an absolute eternity. That faster spool-up time effectively eliminates turbo lag. So when Hamilton or Leclerc touches the throttle at the apex of a slow corner in Austria, They aren't waiting for the engine to catch its breath.
Not at all.
They get a violent, immediate wave of torque delivered straight to the rear tires.
Exactly. And torque delivery dictates driving style. Hamilton thrives in a car that responds instantly to throttle inputs, allowing him to rotate the car on the exit of corners. This turbo upgrade isn't just about raw horsepower, it's about tailoring the drivability of the power unit to perfectly match the demands of their lead driver.
Man, this engineering warfare inevitably spills over into the psychological battle happening on the pit wall. You really cannot separate the machinery from the mindsets of the team principals managing this crisis.
You really can't. They feed into each other.
Let's look at the contrast between Toto Wolff at Mercedes and Fred Vasseur at Ferrari, because the paddock briefings show a massive divergence in their public and private postures.
Oh, the difference is night and day. Wolff's rhetoric right now is incredibly tense. When he says, "We have tight margins, we must improve, we cannot throw away points," he isn't just talking to the media, he is speaking directly to his engineering team.
You can just observe the stress in the system.
Yeah. Wolff operates at his absolute peak when Mercedes is the dominant force, when they are dictating the pace and forcing all the other teams to react. Right now, he is the one reacting. He is on his back foot. He knows that Antonelli's 41-point lead is fragile when the underlying machinery is behaving like a glass cannon.
Then you look across the paddock at Vasseur, the contrast is jarring. Vasseur is projecting this icy, calculated calm.
Ice cold.
In his latest media briefings, he talked about arriving in Austria feeling excited. He is insisting that Ferrari is maintaining the exact same mentality they held during winter testing, focusing purely on what he calls clean sessions. It almost feels like a deliberate refusal to even acknowledge the panic consuming the Mercedes garage next door.
Oh, it is entirely deliberate. Make no mistake, Vasseur is fully aware of the crisis over at Mercedes. There is blood in the water, and his calm demeanor is a calculated tactic in this psychological warfare.
Right.
By focusing his public statements entirely on clean sessions and internal execution, he is projecting an aura of complete control.
Which puts all the pressure right back on Mercedes. Vasseur's subtext is loud and clear. Ferrari doesn't need to invent a miracle this weekend. They just need to execute their run plans flawlessly, deploy this new steel alloy engine upgrade effectively, and let Mercedes defeat themselves.
Because Vasseur understands the mechanics of pressure better than anyone. He knows that if Ferrari simply stays in Mercedes' mirrors, running a hotter, more reliable engine, Mercedes will be forced to push their fragile W17 engines until they physically detonate.
So let's synthesize everything we've extracted from these technical briefings. We are looking at a 2026 grid operating in a state of extreme volatility. That 41-point gap that looked like an impenetrable fortress for Antonelli a month ago, now it looks like a target painted right on his chassis.
A very big target.
Mercedes has a car that possesses immense raw pace, but is fundamentally brittle under thermal load. They are fighting a two-front war here, attempting to fix their own internal engineering failures while desperately trying to fend off a resurgent Ferrari.
And Ferrari is arriving at the Red Bull Ring, a track that perfectly exacerbates every single thermal weakness Mercedes possesses, armed with a bespoke steel alloy engine upgrade, engineered specifically to dominate the altitude and heat of the Austrian mountains.
It is the definition of a perfect storm. So as you tune into the Grand Prix this weekend, keep this reality in mind. The championship isn't just being contested on the asphalt through turn one. The real war is being fought in the rapid-fire, high-stress engineering laboratories in Maranello and Brackley.
That's where the real speed is found.
Every single degree of engine temperature, every millimeter of curve on a turbo compressor blade, every microscopic stress fracture in an aluminum cylinder head that is the unseen battlefield where the 2026 title will be won or lost.
And, when you connect all these technical data points to the broader narrative, it raises an incredibly poignant question.
What's that?
Consider Lewis Hamilton. This is the man whose telemetry feedback, developmental insight, and sheer willpower built the foundation of the modern Mercedes dynasty. He knows exactly how Mercedes operates. He knows their engineering culture inside and out, and he knows exactly how they react when cornered. And now, he was wearing Ferrari red, armed with a superior power unit. His mere presence on the grid is forcing his former team to push their fragile engines past the point of structural failure.
Wow.
So you have to wonder, is Mercedes' ultimate downfall in 2026 being meticulously orchestrated by the very ghost of their own past?